And when I saw some of those guys, the way they were shot up, I said, they'll never make it. Well, I saw one fellow, his face was pretty much gone. And I don't know whether he was one of them that they poured over the side. This is my story.
Steve Hartman has just paid a return visit to a young man who goes all out to honor our veterans of World War II.
20-year-old Rishi Sharma has always been into superheroes, the real kind. That's why, as a junior in high school, he made it his mission to meet as many World War II combat veterans as possible.
I ditched so many days of high school to go do an interview.
You were skipping school to go interview vets?
Yeah, I started riding my bike to the local senior home. I interviewed those guys, then I started driving.
It became a daily undertaking. He travels by car, often sleeps in it. So far, he has interviewed over 850 vets in 40 states.
A Californian man who's made it his lifelong mission to document World War II combat stories has arrived in New Zealand and says he's transfixed by the Kiwi vets he's meeting. Rishi Sharma has already interviewed 1,000 soldiers across America, Australia, Canada and the UK.
They saved the world, and I get an opportunity to sit down and talk to them. I mean, that's the biggest privilege I'll ever have.
His subjects can be 5 times his age.
And his bullet went past and just grazed my eye and took the end off my ear.
So basically, you know, as you mentioned, my name's Rishi Sharma, and I'm on a mission to meet and film interview all the combat veterans of the Allied countries from the Second World War.
This word heroes, it's used far too easy, and this is my opinion, and always will be, I think the real heroes of any battle lay dead in the cemeteries. They're the young men of 17, 18 years old lost their life. In the First World War, 14-year-olds. And I always believe that I'm not the real heroes, they're the heroes.
It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you very much.
Sharing this over with you this morning. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, both.
It's an honor to meet you. So we're going to do an interview today about your experiences in Italy. I've been here in the Toronto, the GTA area, and I've been living out of the car. It's just what I have to do. It saves cash, which is the reason I'm doing it. You know, I interview World War II combat veterans so I can kind of compare the perspectives. At least I'm not living in a foxhole and no one is trying to kill me. You've done more good for the world than you'll ever know.
Yeah, I never thought of that.
I mean that.
I know you do, but I never even thought of that. Yeah, you're right. I guess I did, but you don't think of it at the time, you know.
God bless you, and we'll talk soon, okay?
Well, thank you, sir.
There's so many incredible heroes out there who still have to have their stories told and preserved. That, you know, that's the goal. This is Rishi Sharma. Our world today has been taken hostage by horrific violence, extreme political division with no hope of compromise, and an unnatural fascination with narcissistic celebrities that numb our society to higher callings. It's October 2022, and I've just arrived in upstate New York, near the city of Rochester. Even after 5 years on the road and over 1,700 interviews, I am thrilled for today's opportunity to meet the 100-year-old World War II veteran behind this door. Tucked away in a quiet neighborhood, his deeds not known or celebrated by the outside world, as they should be. Robert Perschitti is a perfect window into the character of a generation that came to age over 7 decades ago and saved this world. Hardened by the Depression, forged by years of sacrifice and bloodshed that made boys into men, he is a true hidden hero of World War II. And now he's going to let us enter his world, a portal to a time in the past that I have become addicted to. What do you say to someone who has made your life possible? Hi, sir. I'm here to interview you.
How you doing?
It's an honor to meet you.
Thank you, thank you.
Thank you for taking the time.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. I'll do what I can, and helping you out.
I interview World War II veterans. I started this when I was in high school.
Okay.
I've been doing this for about 5 years.
Good.
And we're making a TV show to honor you guys. It's called Hidden Heroes. As I set up my equipment, I am always struck by the humble hospitality of these great men who welcome me into their lives. Can you please say testing, 1, 2, 3?
Testing, 1, 2, 3.
One more time.
Testing, 1, 2, 3.
All right, sir. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk with me today about your experiences. Could you please go ahead and introduce yourself? Just say hello and your full name.
Hello, my name is Robert Perschitti. We pronounce it as Perchetti, but it's Perchetti. It's spelled P-E-R-S-I-C-H-I-T-T-I. I was born in coal mining town, southwestern Pennsylvania, about 30 miles from southeast of Pittsburgh, a little town called Calumet. My dad was working in the mines there, so that's where I was born. We had the doctor that brought me into this world, used to use a horse and buggy to get around. And so we lived in sea rights. No electricity at the time. We had lamps, and the school didn't even have lights. So we had to depend upon the sunshine and whatever. But I got through it, and our township only had 8 grades. And when you got through with 8 grades, you were all done. You didn't have to go to high school because we didn't have a high school. So anyway, after I got out of 8th grade, I was like 13 years old. And so we didn't have any money to go to high school because it cost us $4 a month on the bus. And at that time, that's, during the Depression, that's a lot of money. But anyway, I had newspaper route, and I delivered different newspapers. And so with the money that I received, helped me pay to get through the first year. We had a fellow that had a big, brand new Packard at that time, 1936. And he put 9 of us in this car. We used to sit one on top of another in the back. And he had his daughter and another one in front with him. So that year I was able to ride with him. Then the following 3 years I either hitchhiked or, because it was like 7 miles from where I lived, I'd get out on the highway. We had the National Highway at that time, Route 40, running right through our town. And so I'd get out there and hitchhike. Sometimes I wouldn't make it, and they'd keep me after school because I was late. But anyway, I got through 4 years, graduated, and then there was no work. You couldn't get a job. They tell you, come back when you're 21. And it was a very depressed area anyway. And then Pearl Harbor come up. I waited until I was 20. Then I said to my mother, I said, I don't want to wait any longer. I don't want to go in the Army. I want to join the Navy. So I went to the recruiter in Uniontown, which is like 50 miles from Pittsburgh. And he sent us to Pittsburgh for a physical. And at that time, you had to have a pretty good physical. And so I passed the physical, and that was November 11th on a Friday. And he said, well, I'll take you home for the weekend, but you have to be back at the recruiting station to go to Pittsburgh on a Sunday. So then they picked us up, took us to Pittsburgh, and from Pittsburgh we went to Bainbridge, Maryland. And that place, they were just building that place. And it was nothing but a mud hole. But anyway, I spent like 5 weeks at Bainbridge because we couldn't do any drilling or anything. And so they tested us and they said, we're going to send you to radio school. And they sent me to radio school in New York City. And I enjoyed that because I have 2 sisters living in Brooklyn, an aunt in Brooklyn, and cousins. So that's where I ended up going to radio school for 16 weeks. I had to learn how to type and copy all that code. You walk down the street sometimes and you could hear this stuff from copying so much of it. But it was tough. And then after radio school, they sent me to Norfolk, Virginia in a shore station. I spent a year in the shore station. And then after a year, they told me I had to go to sea. So they gave me a list of ships to choose from. So they gave me my choosing. And I chose the El Dorado because they were converting it from a Liberty ship to war. They were doubling the armor on it. And it was in dry dock in Brooklyn. So I had to wait until they released me from Norfolk in April. So in August, we commissioned that ship. And then we set out. We took off, went through the Golden Gates and out in the Pacific. And they made a couple of mock bombing raids. They had a couple of planes up there, and so then we, I don't know, 4 or 5 days or whatever it was, took us to get to Pearl Harbor. Well, when we got to Pearl Harbor, you couldn't get in the harbor because there were so many sunken ships. It was terrible. And we had Christmas and New Year's in Pearl Harbor. And then after that, we loaded the admiral and his staff, and we took off and went to Eniwetok, where we refueled. And once we got in Eniwetok, we refueled, and then we kept going to Guam. So anyway, after Guam, we made a mock invasion in Saipan. And then from there, we went to Iwo. On February 19th, 1945, we made the invasion. In fact, we were there, I think, a couple days before because they pounded that island. You couldn't hardly see it for the smoke that was happening on that island. And you'd think nothing would survive. They had these caves in Mount Suribachi, and they're right down the area where they were landing. And then it was like quicksand. My God, I brought some back that's over there. And they couldn't even get any equipment on that shore because it was so soft, that volcanic ash, that they would sink into it. And so by the time they got to the top, the Japs had a cave right above, and they'd catch them coming in. And that's why they had so many losses. I think it was about third or fourth day when I was on deck that day when I watched them raise that flag twice. When they raised it first, and then the second one, Joe Rosenthal. Joe was aboard our ship. He's the one that brought that flag from our ship and put it up there. all I saw of the invasion, the sea was rough. I saw these fellas going in these landing crafts like the Higgins boats and stuff like that. And I said to myself, I said, you guys are going in, I don't know how many are coming back. But that was just my memory at the time. And so, anyway, they were having so many casualties that they couldn't put them on they didn't have enough room aboard the hospital ships. I think they had 2 hospital ships there. So we had a pretty good sick bay on our ship. We had good doctors too. And so they started bringing them aboard. And when I saw some of those guys, the way they were shot up, I said, they'll never make it. And one night they didn't make it. I saw them push 2 over the side in bags. So they just didn't know where to put them, so they just slid them over the side. Well, I saw one fellow, his face was pretty much gone. And I don't know whether he was one of them that they poured over the side. But it wasn't a good sight. But other than that, I had a good time on that ship. I had good friends. I had them until they've gone. We had good reunions and everything else. So I didn't. I think I chose the right ship. I watched them bombard that place. I watched those 14 and 16-inch shells from the battle wagons at night, just a big red ball of fire, till it hit that island and boom. And it wasn't nice. After we stayed at Iwo Jima, we stayed there long enough until General Smith, who was aboard our ship, he and his staff, they were aboard our ship until they secured the island enough to where he could go over and set up his headquarters. And after that, we left. We went to Leyte and waited for Okinawa. And Okinawa was April 1st, Easter Sunday morning, 1945. And it was a beautiful morning, sunshiny morning, cool just like here. And so one night there was 2 kamikazes coming in. And we were all without lights or anything. And they had this, they made smoke so that they have like a cloud above us. And that smoke would come right into the compartments, our heating and air. And man, that stuff was terrible. But anyway, these 2 kamikazes start coming in. When our ship started firing our 5-inch guns, we had 2, one short, one forward and one aft. And when they start firing a 5, I said, boy, these guys they must be right here. Then I started praying. I prayed that night. I mean, I prayed. Yeah.
What were you praying for?
He'll save us. And I think he has. And I pray every night now even. I pray during the day. I thank the good Lord every day for being here. And sure enough, our ship knocked one of them down. But the other one got away. went over us, right over us. They said the guys that were in the gun turrets, they said they could almost touch him. And he hit the battleship. I thought at the time it was New Mexico, but I don't know. Somebody said it was a different battle wagon. They had 150 casualties. Hit him midships, above decks. It was terrible. I saw it the next morning. I looked through the long glass and on deck, and they were picking up guys and bodies and whatever. And I saw some of those destroyers really full of holes, where the Japs' suicide planes, the commies. In fact, one of them knocked out 19 one day. And when they come back in, they had a lot of dead guys and whatever happened. And you could see some holes in the ship. I mean, it wasn't big enough where they sink them. I mean, it's above water. And then we got out of there. And I saw many destroyers damaged from kamikazes. So that was their last choice, because they didn't have any more support they could, because we took almost all the islands. With Okinawa was the closest to Japan, see? So they knew we were going to be coming in. But they were ready. So we were in the Philippines at the time. We stayed in the Philippines quite a bit. And when I got to the Philippines, we couldn't hardly get into the harbor because there were so many sunken ships. In fact, I even have a picture someplace in my memories. So we did anchor, got into the harbor, and some of these guys, they went in there and bought some of that rot gut and died right there on the deck. Poisonous whiskey or whatever it was. And so while we were there, Manila I don't think there was one building that didn't get hit, except there was a Catholic church. I have that picture someplace. That was never touched. I don't know why, but there wasn't a scratch on it. It didn't look like there was a scratch on that building. We stayed there until they dropped the bomb. And so then when the Admiral come back, he said, "You guys are going home." Because he wanted to go back to his headquarters in Honolulu. So he ordered our ship back to the States. So when we got to Honolulu, we dropped him off and came right home.
Sir, thank you so much for taking the time to talk with me about your experiences. What you went through is unimaginable, but I am so grateful that you did go through it. You've given a lot of people an opportunity at a full and a free life. And that's something that no one can ever take away from you. And I just happen to be one of the persons who you've helped. I would not exist if it wasn't for people like you. And I'm just so happy that you took the time today to talk with me. A couple of things I want to go over. What advice do you want to give to future generations?
I would like to see them go in a service for a couple of years and then get their college education. Not being paid free education. Let them work for their education. Go and spend a couple of years in the service, whether they would like the service or not. And that's my thoughts as far as younger generation today.
What can future generations do to make you feel like the sacrifices made of your generation, were worth it?
I feel My bringing up was a hard life. And today, I see the younger generation being brought up with a handful. Maybe they need to be shown how hard it is to earn a living.
What kind of man do you want people to always think of you as?
Well, I try to be a giver instead of a taker. I felt that the good Lord gave me this stuff, the money or whatever I have, and I feel I'm going to give it out if I can. So this is the kind of person I'm trying to be now, after working and doing a good job and being able to live a good life. So this is what I want to do, and that's what I do every day. And there's my ship. See, it was pretty. That's a 5-inch here, and there's a 5-inch back there. See, and these are all our communication lines.
Can you please tell me, where were you?
Oh,
where would you be stationed?
Oh, we were down on below decks.
Sure.
Second deck, I think, was the radio shack. This is my World War II blouse. The dress blues that I've had for 80 years.
I feel so privileged to be here in this moment, looking into the eyes of a man who was a part of the generation that made it possible for me, for all of us, to live in freedom. But I just want to thank you again for your time, okay?
You're welcome. Thank you.
God bless you.
Thank you for coming over.
And don't forget what I said. When it comes to all the people you've helped, don't ever forget that, because it's true. A lot of people you've given a free and a full life to.
Yeah, well, I did what I had to do.
Absolutely.
The good Lord kept me up to 100.
At least. Let's make for 200, all right?
Okay.
God bless you.
Thank you.
Thanks for everything.
Thank you.
I'm going to get you a copy of this interview, okay?
Okay. Eddie, whenever. Because I appreciate it.
The lift I feel after being in the presence of a hidden hero from the Second World War is quickly replaced with the reality of returning to my car. I am never going to give up my mission to seek out every day the precious World War II veterans who agree to share their stories. But I am fearful now that, after 5 years, financial circumstances will stop me. I have cut every possible expense, and even doing that, I am running out of funds. I literally live in my car, sleeping, eating, and driving up to 10-hour stretches to never miss an opportunity to find a World War II veteran to interview. Won't you please help me continue my mission by donating? If you believe in what I am doing, I urge you to please help me now. Let us never forget these brave souls who willingly took up arms and ventured into the unknowns of the battlefield to fight the good fight in which far too few came back home alive. A generation who had their innocence stolen from them so that we may never have to. Please don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe. These 3 things continue to help our channel grow, and please reach out if you know any pro-veteran businesses that would like to sponsor our videos. Please consider becoming a Patreon subscriber to help us cover our continuing travel and production expenses. Thank you, and God bless the World War II veterans.